Instantly, my mind went to, I have to get my family out of here.
I looked out the window and just saw fire all the way down the road.
Right now, NTSB is on the scene after a small jet crashed in Tierrasanta early this morning, killing several people, damaging multiple homes, destroying cars, and sending jet fuel flowing down the street on fire. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anna Laurel. The NTSB says the plane clipped power lines before hitting a house. This happened right before 4 o'clock this morning in a military housing community at the intersection of Sample and Salmon Streets, not far from Montgomery Field. Just about an hour ago, the FAA confirmed 6 people were on that plane. According to a music talent agency, 3 employees, including the co-founder, died in the crash. 8 others were also hurt. Of course, we've got team coverage on this tragedy, and our Carlo Chiquetto is right there in the neighborhood. Kelly Hezedal has what we're learning about the moments just before the crash. Abby Black has what's being done to help everyone who's now displaced. That's about 100 people. And Shannon Handy is at the Humane Society, where they took pets that were rescued, some covered in jet fuel. Carlo leads us off.
And I'm on Salmon Street where the plane went down, and the first thing you notice is the strong smell of jet fuel. It is a little bit quieter, obviously, than it was earlier. In fact, there are more photographers, reporters, members of the media, and first responders in this neighborhood right now than there are residents because they've been evacuated. Salmon Street and Sample are both closed. I'm going to show you right now where this plane hit. You can see the point of contact, the street here, Salmon Street. That home is 10297 Sample Street. It took the brunt of the crash. Jet fuel was sent spraying, raining down the street. We're told rivers of fire literally burned several cars on that street. Quite the devastating scene. We know that there were 6 people on board that plane, but again, semi-miraculous that no one on the ground was killed. And right now, it is much quieter out here. But that scene was much different in the early morning hours. I'm going to bring in our Brian White. At about 4 a.m. that plane hit, and afterwards, it was chaos. And you talk to people who live here about that.
That's right, Carlo. It was complete chaos for so many people waking up to this with the loud explosions, the flames in the air. They tell me it was scary and overwhelming, and they said they just knew right away they had to get out. This is the terrifying scene Ronald Jones and his family saw out their window, waking to the sound of explosions and fire.
I thought it was an earthquake because we heard the boom, and then I run upstairs, I'm grabbing the kids, look out the back window. All we saw is flames.
Jet fuel from the crash poured into the street, igniting vehicles in a chain reaction.
As we were standing outside, we're watching it just boom, boom, boom. Coming to find out, it was the cars from the plane crash and the fuel getting under the cars.
It looked a lot like a war zone.
Very tense moments for retired Navy veteran Christopher Moore, who scrambled to get his family out.
I was in fear. I was in fear for my life, my family's life. You know, I thought this might have been the end.
Many families fled to nearby parking lots just to get to safety, including the Navy Exchange store down the road, where at least 100 people gathered in shock.
When I came around the corner, I saw all the flames. I saw all the vehicles. Multiple vehicles were kind of like popping. Glass was shattering everywhere.
As the chaos unfolded, neighbors stepped up, running door to door, warning each other to get out fast.
I run up and down the street, banging on my neighbor's doors, up and down, banging on his house. You know, banging on doors. Hey, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here.
With this neighborhood under the flight path to Montgomery Field, now every plane that goes by is a little unnerving.
It's even scarier because they fly above us every day, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's nonstop all day. We got planes flying above us right now, so you never know when it'll happen again.
And Carlo, as you heard there, the people and the families that I spoke with, they said their instincts took over in the moment. Protect their children and their family and get everyone to safety.
So much chaos, so much fear, so much panic, just getting out of their homes. It's so good to hear they went to safety, but are any of them, do they have the perspective yet to have a sense of relief because this was so close to being such a much larger tragedy? It was just feet from a home.
Yeah, I was speaking with people as they came back into their homes after coming back from the evacuation site, and they were still a little bit in shock, but also, yes, relieved, and they definitely were counting their blessings that this plane didn't actually crash into their homes because it was so close.
So close. Brian White. Thank you, Brian. Now, with a little bit more on what exactly happened, we're digging into that. It was a Cessna Citation. That's a small corporate jet coming from Wichita. We understand that clipped power lines before hitting Salmon Street and bursting into flames. Our Kelly Hessedal has been working on this all day long. She's checked in with the air traffic control audio. She's talked to a pilot. I know you have much more on this, Kelly.
That's right, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But we have started to learn more about who was on board that plane. But first, take a look behind me. You can see these charred vehicles up this street. So, Carlo, we're located about a block away from where you are right now. So I talked to a very experienced commercial pilot, more than 40 years. He flat out told me that pilot never should have tried to land at Montgomery Field. Robert Katz walks me through some of the data he uncovered regarding this crash. Take a listen.
We know we hit the ground very hard, very fast, and out of control. I'm going to share this with you so you can see it right here. We're back to the track log on FlightAware, and you can see that the airplane, this is the rate of descent. These down arrows shows the airplane descending in feet per minute. The last two radar hits shows the airplane descending at 1,100 feet per minute and then 750 feet per minute. That's way too fast. For only 600 feet above the ground. He's diving out of the sky because he's not managing the descent of the aircraft the way he should. That to me is a pilot who is not proficient.
And based on the air traffic controller audio from several minutes before the crash, the pilot was not in distress. He didn't know the weather conditions at Montgomery, which we know were poor. Now, his tone was casual. He was kind of going back and forth about possibly trying to land at Brown Field. Now, the plane, a Cessna 550, was leaving Wichita, Kansas, and headed to San Diego. And on board, the music agency Sound Talent Group, co-founder Dave Shapiro, the owner. He is also a pilot, and at least one, possibly two other employees. On social media, we tracked down a recent post for a drummer named Daniel Williams. The tail number matches the one involved in the crash. Williams tagged Shapiro in the post and also posted photos from inside the cockpit. Now, back out here live, we have learned that Williams' death has been confirmed by his father. CBS News spoke to him earlier today. So certainly heartbreaking for everyone involved, and this investigation, of course, is certainly going to be extensive. Carlo?
Kelly, I heard you talking to that pilot. I actually spoke to someone out here who says he's a pilot. He had some concerns about the weather during that approach. What have you heard about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Weather was a huge concern. Katz talked about how Montgomery, the tower there was closed, which the NTSB says is not unusual for a small airport like that, but that the weather conditions at the time or even before this crash, they were not available. So in the air traffic controller audio, you can hear the pilot talking about, trying to land at Brown Field possibly. He talked about possibly Gillespie, but for whatever reason, he chose to try to land at Montgomery.
We're not sure how much of a factor it was, but all we know is that after that exchange, the plane went down. Our Kelly Hessedal reporting live for us. Thank you, Kelly. I mentioned that this neighborhood's evacuated. People are out of their homes right now. It's empty and quiet. Yeah, that's not the scene at Hancock Elementary, where an evacuation site has been set up. That's where we find our Abby Black, where people, the residents who live here who are out of their homes, are getting a lot of support. Abby?
Carla, it's very important. Right now, this is the new evacuation site here at Hancock Elementary. Earlier, the initial one was at Miller Elementary School, but now they've transitioned to over here in the last hour or so. Behind me, you can see they still have truckloads of donations that were dropped off at Miller today, and they're now bringing them over here to Hancock. But important reminder for people, while it is, amazing that people want to come out and support and bring their donations such as diapers and clothes and shoes, hygiene items, They are at capacity, so they're now asking that people refrain from dropping off any types of donations. What they're really in need of right now are cash donations. We have the San Diego Armed Services of YMCA that's here as well. We have STEP that is here. So we have other military organizations. Feeding San Diego is helping to keep and nourish many of these families that were displaced. We're talking about 100 families that were impacted by this plane crash. And now as they continue to kind of let families back into neighborhoods, that parameter is is shrinking. So there may not be as many families impacted, but still there are plenty that are here. I talked to the American Red Cross, and they say that they don't have a count yet how many families will need to get a voucher this evening. They need to reassess that list to see, now that some of the families have been able to go back into the neighborhood, who will actually need a hotel voucher for tonight. But it has been amazing to see today. A lot of humanity in action. This is the essence of our community, where our armed services, our military members serve us and serve our country. And now the community wants to give back and serve many of these military families who have their loved one, their spouse, who's serving overseas at this moment and having to deal with this trauma and this tragedy. And for many of these families, they had to rush out in panic with just their pajamas on during the chaos of all of this. And now, as the day has settled in, they need shoes, they need a toothbrush, they need clothes, they need diapers, they need car seats. Some of these families, though, have lost their cars, so they don't have transportation. So this is where our community really comes together. And this is where they're also providing counseling, because as you can imagine, not only traumatizing for these parents who are trying to protect and shield their child from this and stay strong, but how to approach this and talk with their child. Today, I saw out on the plane crash scene, I saw it over at Miller Elementary. The San Diego Fire Department's therapy dog was in action there to provide some comfort for some of those kids who just needed some type of normalcy and to feel comforted during this chaos.
A lot of smells, a lot of debris, a lot of sadness. And so she comes in and kind of calms it down for really everybody. Gives us a chance, the chaplains, to kind of get in and just touch base with people, see how they are, check on our crew, make sure they're all okay.
That's what I just love, that when we saw Genoa, the dog, walking around, there was another one, Ruby, the kids just lit up, and that's what really warms your heart. That during these dark times and this tragedy, it can be incredibly scary, not knowing where you're going to go tonight, where you're going to sleep. You don't have your toys. Maybe some people don't have their pets, but again, pets are welcome here, but maybe they don't have their pets. They just get to pet Ruby or Genoa and just to have that blanket of comfort for them. I also want to mention that I just got off the phone with the San Diego Unified spokesperson, and he tells me that tomorrow Hancock Elementary School will be closed. This is school that is closest to the plane crash site, but they will reopen Miller, so that's why they had to close down that site. But Hancock will still be closed. But again, for many of these families that cannot go back into their homes, they do have the American Red Cross that will be working with them, and as well as the Liberty Military Housing, who manages it. For those that need more long-term temporary housing, they're going to work with them as well. They have housing here in the San Diego metro area as well as at Camp Pendleton.
Abby, you've been out there all day. Abby, you've been out there at the evacuation sites all day. Can you tell me, has the mood changed? How are the evacuees doing at this point as opposed to earlier today when you first arrived?
Well, I think really it's actually heightened. You know, I think especially when some of the families first came in, they started to trickle in. I think they didn't really know where to go, what to do, and they're overwhelmed with where do I even start? So they had an assembly line, or they had like a check-in point, and they assessed what were your needs. Do you need housing? Do you need clothes? Do you need food? And then that kind of moved on. But as the incident commander came over when we were at Miller Elementary, I overheard a distraught mother that was behind me, and she just wanted to be able to get some information on how she could get medicine for one of her dogs that has special needs, and she just still wasn't able. Totally okay, I'm in your way, on how she needed to get some help. So the frustration is mounting as far as just trying to get some answers, but I think when we see a situation like this, everyone's just trying to get their ducks in an order to try to make sure that every family need is met at the moment. And this is where you can see that these are the needs. This is what people are doing to support these families. But again, I think just not knowing what the next step is what's frustrating parents as well. But they do have it under control here as far as trying to make sure that these families can transition into more of a temporary or some type of normalcy until they can get back into their homes.
Yeah, you can understand their frustration in such a chaotic time. Abby Black, thank you. Now we're going to turn to Shannon Handy, who has the angle of this from the San Diego Humane Society's efforts. Pets ran from homes. Families were scrambling to get out themselves, get their children out, and some of these pets ran into the streets. San Diego Humane Society came on scene to help first responders catch some of those animals. Shannon, what can you tell us?
Well, Carlo, the latest numbers we were just given so far, the Humane Society has rescued 24 animals from the crash site. That includes 1 cat and 8 puppies. So most of the animals are dogs, and some of them are here behind me, I should say. And I was actually here when a lot of these animals came in. They were noticeably scared and nervous, obviously because of the trauma of hearing that crash, of being away from their owners, but also just the uncertainty of being in a new situation. They are safe and sound now, but earlier it was a rush to get them help because a lot of them were covered in jet fuel. Take a look.
Are you scared?
And we were here as a lot of them were brought in. Humane Society officers were called out to the scene right after the crash by San Diego police, who reported seeing a lot of pets roaming around without their owners. Now, in some cases, pets were left inside their homes because owners had to evacuate so quickly. In others, they simply ran away because they were scared. And in a few cases, the owners actually approached Humane Society officers and said, "I cannot care for my pet right now." So those pets were taken in as well. They were brought here, examined and cleaned, and workers treated this as a hazmat situation because of that jet fuel. And this is something they will continue to do throughout the day. They'll be driving around the crash site looking for animals. They are doing that at this hour. They will also be responding to calls from owners who need help with their pets.
If you have been impacted by this plane crash and you need help with your animal, call us. Our dispatch team is ready. They are compiling calls for service for our emergency response team, who is behind fire lines right now. So they can help on site. If you need any other help, you can certainly come to our campus, but call us first. That number is 619-299-7012, and you would hit 1 for dispatch.
And back out here live, something that we've reported about in the past is how over capacity the Humane Society is. And even though that's the case, the Humane Society says they will help these animals, no questions asked. In this case, we actually have a pair of siblings here. So they're trying to keep the animals that live together if they can. And these animals, they will stay for as long as they need to. So in some cases, owners may come back tonight or tomorrow and pick up their pets. But in others, they may need some more time to get back on their feet, and the Humane Society says they will be here for that. And one thing I should also point out, Carlo, is that every single one of these animals that was brought in, it was checked to see if they had a microchip. So if it was a situation where we just didn't know who the owner is, the Humane Society is checking them for microchips so they can contact the owners to ensure that the owners know their animals are safe.
Good reminder to get your pets chipped and to update those chips if you haven't in a while. Shannon Handy reporting live for us. Thanks, Shannon. Right now, it's getting a little bit quieter on Salmon Street here in Tierrasanta, where that plane went down a little more than 12 hours ago. It's hard to imagine that in that time, there were just flames and chaos in the street behind me. Right now, an urban search and rescue vehicle is blocking off the street as they're doing work. We're not sure what it's blocking exactly. It could be recovery efforts. We know the plane went down with 6 people on board. We're still waiting to hear the status of that. Actually, I hear the truck starting up right now, so we'll see if it moved. But Anna, we are on scene. We'll get you the latest if there are any new developments in this investigation from Tierrasanta.
You know, Carlo, you said there's a lot of media out there. We can see them even in the background of your shots. But oh look, this urban search and rescue truck is moving out of the way now so we can see a little bit more of that street behind you. But describe to people what the mood, besides the media, what is the mood out there right now?
Well, quite frankly, other than the media and first responders, it's a ghost town. There's police tape on both ends of Salmon Street in this block. I believe it's the 10,000 block. Salmon Street's closed down. There are no people walking through. There's no one in their homes. So it's kind of eerily quiet except for this huge scrum of media. And you see all the various agencies out here, San Diego Fire Rescue, NTSB. There are FBI investigators. You also see some military personnel. As we've mentioned, this is a military community. So the mood is just kind of odd. It's just a crash scene. Hours later, that's been shut down, and there's not a lot going on as far as the neighborhood itself, and the investigation itself is moving into a different phase. It's not that rushed panic to put out flames, to get people to safety. That phase is over. Now it's the hard work of figuring out exactly what happened and to potentially recover the remains of people who were on that plane. Again, though, still hard to believe the needle thread that this plane had to do to not hit any homes directly and take even more lives.
Yeah, we're all still trying to wrap our heads around the fact that no one on the ground was killed, but our hearts are with every family displaced tonight. Carlo, thanks so much for being out there and bringing us their stories.